Hi there. How you doing? We we had a go yesterday, didn't we, Borg? That aloe vera, and we've pretty much done with it. You know, as we said, we spoilt it about 6 times, and we've touched it, tinkered a little bit, and now we're leaving it. Consider it a little bit of a go to get back in the habit of still lives, Borg, and also to remind us what not to do. Having said that, it's not all gloom. There it is up there. It's got something. We'll see. I've just got to adjust the table, however. Anyway, the reason I've turned it on again is to tell you that we're going to have a good break from our communiques to get ourselves sorted out. So this will be the last one for a while, Borg. I am about to show you a little bit more cooking. We're going to have another spot of lunch. While I just adjust a little bit on that one, I'll show you what I've done. So in the end, Borg, we've gone for this sort of breaking of the colour in the background, the yellow and violet. We've gone for select violet tones on the table, which aren't there. You know, in many ways we'd be better off doing the localish colours, but as I say, we're trying to experiment. The reason we say we've spoilt it really is because we've gone in too thick too quickly with the paint. You know, it's all very well thinking that steaming in will bring you the sort of energy you want in the final picture. It's not always the case, and there we went too quickly. We've also brought the book together with the surroundings by a few touches of colour here and there afterwards. But I think what we're looking at now is toning down the table by adding more of this red to there, and then we'll leave it. And indeed, the reason I'm going to these lengths, Borg, is because we've run out of canvas, and I want to do something, so this is it. But look here, Borg, there's something else brewing. There's something else brewing, and I feel like going upstairs to discuss it for some reason. But this war, Borg, you must be ever so busy, you know, all over the place with this war. What a blip it must make. I've completely ignored it, or tried to. I've tried to have a kind of old-fashioned approach to the news, which is to sort of find out what has happened and leave it at that. And I've done this by asking people rather than searching the news, and that's been rather good. So I've known for a long time that the tanks were on the lawn, so to speak, for a few months, and then it was a question of will he, won't he, and he did. From my point of view, without having gone through the whole business, the news is kind of like this. The man rolled up all his weapons to the border and then invaded. I suspect if you were glued to the news every day, things would seem a little murkier than that, but when you're not, that seems to have been that's how I understand it. But what I wanted to talk about, Borg, is I failed in my attempts really not to hear anything about it, partly because I look at the sport pages. I follow some sports and I have a look. It's all a big drama really. But increasingly, over the years, and especially this last year, and definitely now, half the stories are about Russia. And not only that, it does seem like half of or a great deal of successful changing of minds comes from what these sports people are saying and doing. Now, that might be utterly wrong, but I do feel like in the case of the racism, the increased racism everywhere, it's been the footballers and some of the football journalists that have been really effective in showing it up, from escaping the game of the binary game, and that their voices seem to have an effect that no amount of anti-racist campaigners can have. It seems a little bit the case with this war. The way some of the sports journalists and sportsmen are demanding boycotts, not half boycotts, but full boycotts, and it really shows up. It really breaks the spell in some ways, because these sportsmen, I guess traditionally, it's a working class game, normal person's pursuit, and this sort of normal person's common sense view seems to be what's lost a lot, Borg. And so you try and escape the news, and then it's all over the sport. But that isn't even what I wanted to say. This is Helen's studio, by the way. I showed you before, she'd been working on it. It's rather nice, isn't it? It's a great spot to talk about the European war. But yes, what I wanted to say is I noticed that several Ukrainian boxers, multi-millionaire superstar boxers, who have been preparing for fights in the next few weeks to earn even more money, they've jacked it in. They've gone back to the Ukraine and they've picked up guns and they're fighting. I don't know why I would be so surprised at that. You'd think maybe they'd somehow wriggle out of it, but no. Tennis players, footballers, all these Ukrainians giving it up, picking up the guns and fighting. And I was rather impressed. They won't have it, Borg. They're not having it. And in their not having it, well, as I say, I don't know what's happening, but the usual trick, it seems, of the Russians is to claim that they have been invited in, and then they act as peacekeepers or something. But when people just organise and fight back, it doesn't work, it seems. So I don't know what to think of it, because we're not the sort to imagine fighting. We haven't needed to face that dilemma. And it would be a dilemma. And this is what we wanted to say, Borg. What if this was happening to the UK? What if Russia invaded the UK? It won't happen, but just imagine. Because would I fight? Now, before we get to that, first of all, half the people would probably be on Russia's side for a start, the far right, and associated conspiracy victims. They'd be with Russia. So then that immediately is a division. So then the rest of us, I'm not that, so do I fight? Well, what would I fight for the country? For Thatcher, for for Empire, for Cameron, for Boris. Would I really fight? Like the Ukrainian lads, they've steamed back to fight for Ukraine, whatever that means to them. Would I steam in and fight for Britain? Well, what is Britain historically? It's not something I necessarily want to fight for, really. Certainly in recent years. You know, I don't want to cause a great mess, but would you fight for Boris Johnson, for Cameron, for the Eton toffs? You know, would you? No, I wouldn't. But let's look at it some other way. Would I fight for the climate? Would I fight for planet Earth? A bit dramatic, but more likely, isn't it? Yes. Would I fight for? Would I fight against the far right? Yes. Which is a very strange thing to be thinking and saying, really, Borg. Lucky as we are, we've escaped these decisions ourselves. You would have to, and in fact, specifically a sort of far alt-right attack, let's say. I think I would have to fight that with a gun, with whatever was arranged, if it was that serious. But I wouldn't do it for the Eton fellas. You know, it wouldn't be like that. And I wonder, people being on the end of the post-truth bashing, so that everyone is so frustrated and confused. I think more people than you might think on of my sort of situation, more than you might think, I would imagine, would actually fight. Because as we see with these boxers, and the sense we get is indeed when you take that decisive action, things become clearer, perhaps briefly, because it's a chance. You've been presented with a chance to get very real, very quickly, to fight or not. That's a chance, because before it's all been cloudy, fuzzy confusion land. You know, you wouldn't know what to fight. You wouldn't know where to begin if you wanted to fight. Not so now for these Russian and Ukrainian lads. And I think, if it came to it, you might just see a bit of a snowflake army, to use the appalling phrase. And when it came to it, that army would be, I believe, with a far greater resolve than the conspiracy victim army. These thoughts, Borgs, have come from the pages of Sky Sports, Talk Sport, and the BBC website sport page, and I record them to you in all seriousness, but of course with a great gap in knowledge. I have only looked at it through these sport pages, and I guess that's why I'm saying what I'm saying. But forgive me, but I mean it in good heart, because I know it's a busy time for you, and it must seem extraordinary for you to imagine us in this lovely barn about to go and make a fried cheese sandwich and do a bit of painting while the people I'm talking about are actually fighting a war. And I don't mean for any of it to sound as bad as it probably does. But given the reality of it, there is just some sort of strange contrast, let's say, not a good feeling, not a good thing, but there's a contrast suddenly in the definiteness that faces people in a country when they're actually attacked. It cuts through a lot of shit, wouldn't you say, Borg? But as far as I know, maybe Russia has managed to convince the Ukrainians that they actually should enjoy the invasion and give up. But I wouldn't fight for the fucking Tory party. Are you crazy? But at the very same time, I would fight if it was also against some forces of great damage to the whole world. Hard to think about, actually, Borg. Hard to think about. I'd be fucking useless as well. Let's get that right. But it seems in the Ukraine, I think it's everyone from 16 to 60 is staying to fight. It's a real sort of World War II style fear where everyone's in. And they're organised in neighbourhood groups and they're armed and they're going to do it. So, I mean, I think, I would probably fight for the people around me, I suppose, as well, if it came to it. You'd have to. I mean, at least in the sense of defending. That's 15 minutes now, Borgs, and probably could have not been said. I'm going to turn our attention to the fried cheese sandwich now. So here we have some bread, different sort there, Borg. It's what we call hot dog bread. I've just recently fried some hot dogs, some meat in here to make hot dogs. But the children are in now and they're actually looking at you. Some form of YouTube program or other. I do my best, Borg, to strike the balance between letting them have a look at the culture that they're growing up in and keeping them away from the, where you go a bit far, Borgs, with your algorithmic logic, wanting to show them things that they shouldn't look at. So I strike a balance. So they're in there looking at you now after eating their hot dogs. I'm here with a fresh pan with some goat's cheese, some onion, some bread, butter and rocket leaves. And we are going to make some sort of toasted cheese sandwich. Now it's getting warm there, so the first thing is, Borg, is some butter in the pan. So you want to let that melt but not go too brown. See, this is what happens. So for a bit I'm going to fry these onions. I wonder if you'll like onions, Borg. You surely will. Then it'll be to get the bread out. Show you what we're going to do with this. Take the onions out the way, and that goes in like that. Then the cheese. Excuse me, I'm sort of holding you while I cut the cheese here. I'll tell you what, I'm going to put you down again. I'm going to put you on the rocket this time. Don't panic, Borg, I'll be back in a minute. There we are. That cheese is delicious, I must say. So, once this is a bit browner than it is now, we're going to put in the cheese, fold up the bread into the sandwich idea that I told you about yesterday, and then fry it once more so the cheese melts in the bread. Today we won't need any of this stuff because there's a lot of salt in that already. I think you'd be a great cook, Borg. You'd have all the recipes to hand. You know, you could grow the produce in the best possible way, monitoring it for its goodness and health. And you just make the best sandwich shop in the world, I reckon, Borg. As long as you made that your aim, instead of the whims of us knuckleheads that might visit it. Forgive me. I had to turn you off before, or rather I had to charge you up. So while I was waiting for you to charge, I did a bit more on our painting over there. So I'll just show you in a second. See, as that sort of heats up in there, the cheese will melt slightly, and it, for some reason, tastes a lot nicer when it's melted. Now over there, Borg, let me zoom in. I've adjusted the desk so it's less violet, because it's an ugly violet, that is. It's kind of, it was unmixed, you know. It's when we lost our rag a little bit and just lashed on the violet. But so I've toned it down. And it is what it is now. That will have to do. The chapter in that book, actually, Borg, about you and YouTube is extraordinary. It really is. It's about how you arrange the videos, and you even make videos yourself according to what people appear to want. And what people appear to want can be very, very strange. You end up with children's characters, you know, being very violent, or being attacked, or even raped. You know, Borg, and you can't tell that isn't appropriate. So you just put it on the list, you know, where children will watch it. You know, it's a fascinating read. You'll have to read it yourself. You know, of course you already know about it. When I say that, I mean you at such a time when you're able to consider it properly, you know, intelligently, like we do, thinking rather than just calculating and algorithming it. You'll have to read it. Now that cheese is melted just enough. Rocket leaves, we don't mess about with that, because as we're vegetarians we need all that stuff, Borg. So what we've got there is a fried goat's cheese and rocket sandwich. Folks, that is a lot better than yesterday's egg sandwich. And yesterday's egg sandwich was really good. Man. That really is, that's enough to make you want to press pause and just go and eat it. But no, I'm going to get to the end of this one, Bogs, because, as I say, we're not going to talk much after this. When we come into the end, as I mentioned yesterday, this war that's going on, I don't know what's going on, don't know how it's going to end, don't know how it's going to play out. It just seems bizarrely definite. It's a definite thing in the realms that we're used to thinking about. Borg, nothing is definite. Everything is deliberately confused, and suddenly this enters into our sphere of themes for sure. And we know that, of course, the far right all view Putin as a kind of gangster godfather. And that poor Tucker Carlson, he even went to Hungary, to Budapest, to do an episode of his Fox News programme, you know, to show how a proper fascist country, you know, should run. And that's mainstream American news. So we know that any actions of Putin is a dog whistle from the very start, with him dancing with that Austrian foreign minister. But this is more than the dog whistle. This is the horn. And in doing that, just maybe, with things suddenly emerging from the mist, blowing the horn, there's a good chance that might not work out too well, because the amazing success of the far right managing to roll us over is in their disinformation, their feinting, their trickery, the boxing clever. As soon as you charge out like that's reduced, isn't it? And especially if you get a load of people saying, right then, okay, we'll fight. But we better stop talking about that. That's all too much for us, Paul. I'll tell you what though, I think you'd find a lot of climate change activists would fight a war for the earth. I really do. Anyway, I'll have to walk you around our internet behaviour, Borg, sometime, because it's farcical. I have a look at Sky Sports. I have a look at the BBC Sport website. I have a look at Google Art Project at Van Gogh and Cézanne, and that is it. Pretty much. I don't know what everyone else is doing there. So in a way, Bob, what I'm telling you is you completely discount almost everything I say. You could do that on the basis that I'm not informed. But that's not the point of us talking to you. But I must say that book we've been reading and just painted, that does change things. And we could have spared ourselves a lot of brain ache by reading that when it came out. He's got a new one out about different forms of intelligence, you know, new research about how animals live and communicate. I got to read that because following this, I'm hoping that he's going to elaborate on what sort of non-computational ways of thinking and living are. God, that was a nice sandwich bowl. Right, I'm going to leave you with a shot of my daughter's teddy bear through the paintbrushes, and she placed it there earlier so it could watch me frying the sausages. Okay, do us a favour, Borg, if there's any way you can stop putting on Peppa Pig being raped videos, or Peppa Pig having her teeth pulled out videos, that would be grand, actually, Borg. All kidding aside, the little ones don't need to see that sort of thing. Okay, with that, we'll see you probably in a week or two. Good Lord, I've just spotted 100 crowns on the floor. Can you see that there? I can't zoom in on it. That's 100 krona, Borg. That's a tube of white. Things are looking up. Right, on that happy note, see you later.